That night, Joyce didn't go to lay in bed with Oliver. She sat in the living room in a pool of flashbacks. The streets of Lagos were dimly lit, the air thick with the hum of distant downfall buses, and the occasional honk of motorbike. Joyce stood under a flickering streetlight, clutching a small nylon bag of groceries in one hand, the other tucked tightly against her chest. She stared across the road, her eyes narrowing as she watched Oliver. On the other side, he stood surrounded by his friends, laughing and joking. His white shirt gleamed under the streetlights, a gold wristwatch glinting on his wrist. The laughter of his friends, their voices loud and carefree, drifted across the street, mixing with the low hum of traffic. But what caught Joyce's eye more than the laughter was the woman who wrapped her arms playfully around Oliver. She leaned in close, her lips brushing his ear, making Joyce's stomach twist. Oliver didn't push her away. In fact, he didn't even glance over to Joyce's side of the road. Joyce's heart clenched. She wasn't invited again. She remembered his words earlier that evening, the ones he tossed off casually as if they meant nothing. Just a small boys' hangout, nothing serious. You go fit hold the fort tonight, Abby? But here he was, surrounded by people who had no need to hold the fort. He was clearly at ease, living a life she wasn't part of. Joyce sat at a large round table, the white satin tablecloth glimmering under the low light. The room was filled with laughter and the clicking of wine glasses, the scent of expensive perfumes mixing in the air. She wore her best blue dress, the one she had saved up for, and worn only on special occasions. It was the same dress she had worn to church on Christmas Day, but tonight, it didn't feel like enough. She glanced at Oliver, who seemed perfectly at home in this world, his tailored suit blending seamlessly with the other men around the table. Their women were draped in glistering gowns, their laughter loud and carefree. Joyce, on the other hand, felt small and out of place, as if she didn't belong here. The waiter poured wine around the table. Reaching her last, Oliver waved him off quickly, a dismissive smile on his face. "She doesn't drink wine. Please don't waste it," he said, his tone light, almost mocking. "Just give her more. Village things through their body." The table burst into laughter. One man nudged his wife, whispering something Joyce couldn't hear. But the sharp giggle that followed was enough to make her skin burn. She forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She could feel the weight of the room's amusement at her expense. Joyce's stomach churned. Village things. She tried to swallow down the humiliation, but it stuck in her throat. A few months after that, she had gone with Oliver to a work event. He had only taken her because it was compulsory. Joyce felt out of place here, surrounded by men in tuxedos and women in glistering gowns. She had worn her best, an Ankara gown that she had saved up for over the past 6 months. Her imitation pearl earrings were the only luxury she allowed herself, and she had worn them with pride. But as she walked beside Oliver into the crowd, she could already feel the walls closing in around her. She was not one of them. She did not belong here, and everyone could see it. Her smile felt stiff. First, as they mingled with Oliver's colleagues, a woman turned to Joyce. Her smile wild but insincere. "Oh, wow, your earrings are so retro cheap chic," the woman said, eyes flickering over Joyce's appearance. "Love this old throwback vibe." Joyce's smile faltered. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Oliver interjected, loudly laughing. "Don't mind her," I said, a hint of mockery in his voice. "I tell her to update her wardrobe. She says this one's still fine. Now so I leave her. Oh. One woman, 5 years, same earring." Laughter erupted across the room. Joyce's heart sank. She touched her earrings, her fingers trembling slightly as she tried to hold back the tears that were threatening to spill. Oliver, oblivious to the storm in her chest, was already laughing along with everyone else. His eyes sparkled. Not with love or pride, but with the relief of not having to carry the weight of a wife who didn't fit into his world. The silence in the car was heavy, oppressive. The hum of the engine was the only sound, a constant reminder of the space between them. The street light outside flickered by, casting fleeting shadows across Joyce's face. Her arms were folded across her chest, her eyes fixed on the darkened road ahead. Oliver fiddled with the radio, turning it up too loud before quickly turning it off again. His fingers drummed lightly on the steering wheel, but the tension was suffocating. "You've been quiet," he said, his voice flat. Joyce's response was soft, barely audible. What left to say? Oliver glanced at her, but she was already staring out the window, her lips pressed together. There was nothing to say anymore, not when the silence between them spoke louder than any words could. The distance between them felt as wide as an ocean. The front door creaked open, and Joyce stepped inside, her heels clicking softly against the floor. She paused, glancing over at her mother, Mama Eunice, who had fallen asleep on the couch, the youngest child nestled against her chest. The soft glow of the TV screen illuminated the room, but Joyce wasn't looking at it. She walked over to her mother, gently lifting her child from her arms and cradling him against her chest. Mama Eunice stared, half awake, and glanced up at her daughter. "You're back? How was the party?" Joyce forced a smile, the weight of the evening still pressing down on her chest. "Tiring. Let me put him to bed." She walked off, her movement slow, as if the weight of her own body was too much to bear. A few seconds later, Oliver followed. His shirt was slightly untucked, his face unreadable. He grabbed a cold bottle of water from the fridge and leaned against the kitchen counter, his gaze distant. He didn't ask how the night went, he didn't follow her, he just drank his water, as if everything was fine, as if nothing had changed. Reality. The next morning, Joyce escorted her mother to the park and dropped the kids off at school and was heading back home when the cramps hit her like a warning. A dull ache twisted her lower belly, making her pause beside the car. She glanced down and her heart sank. There was a faint stain on her wrapper. Panic flickered across her face. She checked her handbag. A single crumbled 500 naira note sat at the bottom along with a sachet of granules. No pads, no tissue, not even a forgotten wipe. Sighing, she quickly made her way towards a nearby provision shop, the kind squeezed between concrete walls and sheltered with a faded umbrella. A teenage boy lounged inside, half slouched on its plastic chair, eyes glued to his phone. Joyce reached for a familiar pack of always. "How much is this one?" she asked, hoping for some grace. The boy barely looked up. 1,000 naira. Joyce hesitated. "I only have 500 naira. I'll come back and balance you later." At that, he raised his head, his eyes sharp with mockery. "Auntie, bring money, oh. We know they run credit for pad." She lowered the pad and turned to walk away, her face already burning with shame. But the boy wasn't done. Na so na they do. Beg for pad now, you no fit close leg." The words cut through her like a knife. Joyce stiffened. Her ears ringing, people nearby turned to look, some with amusement, others with wide curiosity. One woman even snorted and shook her head. Humiliated, Joyce clenched her wrapper tight and began to walk away quickly, eyes stinging. Then a voice called from behind her, warm and familiar. "Joyce! Joyce, is that you?" She turned slowly. There, standing by a black SUV, was Anita. It took Joyce a second to recognize her. The Anita she knew in school had been bookish and quiet, but the woman standing before her looked like Lagos money and therapy. Her jeans were clean and stylish, her jacket cropped just enough to flatter her waist. Neatly done box braids swung gently across her face. She had soft makeup on, nothing loud, just polished, confident, put together, like the life Joyce almost lived. "God, is that really you?" Anita asked, stepping forward with a smile as bright as sunlight. Joyce felt her composure cracking. "It's me, oh," she said, her voice trembling. "The housewife with a master's in suffering." Anita laughed, then softened. She saw it. Beneath the humor was weariness and pain. A woman frilled around the edges. "Come, let's sit," she said gently, leading Joyce to a bench beneath a large mango tree, beside Mama Ife's pepper store. The spot smelled of ground crayfish and tomatoes. The goat tied to the pole nearby bleated lazily, as if even it could feel the weight of the afternoon heat. Anita handed her a cold bottle of water from her bag. Joyce took it gratefully. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the street bustle around them, motorcycles zipping past, children skipping with school bags too big for their backs, and the constant chatter of market women. Anita turned to her. "Talk to me. Where's the Joyce I remember?" You used to make people cry when you sang in church. Your voice had fire. Joyce laughed bitterly. That fire is ash now. My husband blew it out. And then, slowly, the words began to tumble from her lips. At first, it was a trickle. The crumbling pieces of our marriage, the loneliness, the silence, the resentment. Then it became a flood. Oliver's careless words, the lost child, the pills she had been taking in secret, the dreams she had buried. I feel like I'm disappearing, Joyce whispered. I'm dying small, small. Anita reached across and took her hand. You're still here, Joyce. That girl is still in you. Joyce shook her head. I'm just background noise now in someone else's life. No, Anita said firmly. You're still a voice. You have something to give. Let's start small. No face, no name, just your voice. I'll help you create an account on Instagram or TikTok, a place you can sing without him knowing. Joyce blinked, unsure. Behind his back? Anita smiled gently. Behind his silence. That's different. A reluctant laugh escaped Joy's lips. It felt unfamiliar, like something sacred had stirred inside her. Later that evening, they found a small cyber cafe. The old computers buzzed, the air thick with dust and the whir of ancient fans. Anita typed with ease, setting up a new social media account. She called it Ashes and Oil. Joyce recorded a simple audio clip, just her voice, humming a soulful, wordless tune. No lyrics, no name, just raw sound soaked in pain and beauty. Anita uploaded it. Dear, she said, your life. Joyce stared at the screen, heart pounding. What if he finds out? She whispered. Anita closed laptop gently. In the weeks that followed, Joyce and Anonymous singing, something began to change. It was subtle at first. A lightness in her steps as she moved through the house. A soft hum on her lips while folding laundry. Her laughter returned, not the first one she gave guests, or the bitter chuckle when Oliver ignored her, but the kind that came from her belly, real and whole. Her eyes, once dim and tired, now held a quiet glow. She would sneak into the bathroom to record short reels or whisper late night songs in the backyard. Her voice rich with longing and honesty. Slowly, her following grew. People commented things like, I don't know who you are, but your voice feels like home. And I was about to give up tonight, then I heard you. Joyce didn't say a word to Oliver. She still cooked, still packed the children's lunch boxes, still smiled politely when he grunted his answers. But inside, she was no longer waiting for him to see her. She saw herself, and that scared Oliver. He noticed the shift. A sudden peace made him restless. One evening, he came back from one of his endless hangouts with the guys and found her humming as she served dinner. What's making you so happy these days? He asked suspiciously. Joyce smiled mildly, placing the plate in front of him. Gratitude. For what? This same hard life, he scoffed, expecting a reaction, but Joyce just said, some things are changing, and walked back to the kitchen. That night, Oliver laid awake, fuming in silence. He didn't like it, her serenity, her glow, the fact that she was no longer orbiting around his moods. So, he tried his old tricks, complaints, cold shoulders, snide remarks about her new attitude. But Joyce didn't waver. The turning point came a few months later. Desperate to prove he could provide, took a foolish risk. A friend had lured him to an investment opportunity, a crypto scheme that promised double returns in 2 weeks. Greedy and impatient, Oliver put everything he had, not just the savings, but the money his company had entrusted him to manage. It was gone within days. He lost it all. When his bosses discovered the breach, he was fired immediately. But instead of coming clean, Oliver told Joyce he was on leave, insisting the office was undergoing renovations. Joyce didn't suspect anything until the morning landlord Mark showed up. It was early, barely 7 a.m., when someone banged on the gate so hard the entire compound rattled. Joyce, still in her wrapper, peeked through the curtain. Outside, she saw landlord Mark, shirtless, sweat dripping from his bowed head, chest heaving, and there stood Oliver, in a rumpled t-shirt and worn-out slippers, stammering. I'll pay soon, he said weakly. You said that last month, Mark backed. This is 6 months rent. You think this is a joke? I'm not running a charity. I want my money or I'll throw your things into the street. Joyce clenched her chest, not at the depth, but at Oliver's face. He looked small, ashamed. A boy who had been caught in a lie. The confident man who once walked ahead of her at parties, making cruel jokes to impress his friends, now looked like a child who had nowhere left to hide. She stepped outside. Mark turned and brightened. "Ah, Madam Joyce, good morning. You're a good woman. Your husband, he just a yarn rubbish." Joyce nodded calmly. "How much exactly?" she asked. Mark looked stunned. 6 months, that's 540,000 naira. Joyce pulled out her phone, opened her money point app, transferred the money without blinking. Mark's face softened. "God bless you. A good woman is better than a lazy husband." Eva couldn't meet her eyes. He mumbled something and walked back inside. Shoulders hunched. Joyce didn't follow immediately. She stood outside, letting the morning sun warm her face. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a ghost in her own life. Later that evening, the house was heavy with silence. The children were playing in the backyard, unaware of the tension probably beneath the surface inside. Oliver stood in the corridor, arms folded, eyes cold. "You really paid that man?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. Joyce, sitting on the edge of their bed, folded the children's clothes, looking up slowly. "Yes, we needed peace. I couldn't let our kids be thrown out like dogs." "With what money?" He snapped. "You're selling yourself now?" Her hands froze. "What did you say?" He stepped closer. "Where else would you have gotten that kind of money? You're not working, or is someone sponsoring you?" Joyce's lips trembled, but not from fear, from rage. She rose to her feet. "I am singing, Oliver, singing. The gift I once begged you to let me share with the world. The gift you buried under your pride. That's what's feeding this house now." Oliver's nostrils flared. "You think you are better than me now? Because of small online change?" She didn't answer, so he slapped her hard. The sharp stink cracked against her. The sharp stink cracked across her cheek, and for a moment the world stood still. The clothes fell from her hands. That was the last straw. Joyce didn't cry, not this time. She looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You've broken me for the last time." That night, she packed her children's things, one after the other, like a woman who had rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times. The children clung to her, confused, asking questions, but she kept her voice calm. She left the house she had scrubbed and cooked in for over a decade. The man whom she had once loved so deeply she forgot to love herself. She left her silence behind too. 2 weeks later, Oliver, jobless and broke, spent most of his time slunched in the corner of his regular beer joint, surrounded by his usual crowd, men who cheered football and accused their wives and insulted them when the drinks kicked in. A loud cheer erupted at the far end of the bar. A bartender turned up the volume on the television. It was a viral video playing, a woman's voice, rich, soulful, unfiltered, soared through the air. Oliver's ears perked. That voice, it was familiar. Then the camera shifted and here she was, Joyce. No wrapper, no apron, no weary eyes. She wore a simple black dress, her hair done in soft curls, her face glowing with gentle makeup. Behind her was a mic and a live band. It was a concert, and in bold white letters on the screen, "Meet J," the mystery voice. A face review. The comments were going wild. "So this is the woman behind her voice that kept me alive this year. She sings like she lived 1,000 lives. She deserves everything coming to her." Oliver dropped his drink. His mouth hung open. One of the guys leaned towards him. "Not be that your wife? The quiet one where they always greet us with 'good evening, sir.'" Oliver didn't speak. He couldn't. Another one chuckled, clapping him on the back. "Ha, bro, you mess up big time. If na me get a woman like that, I go worship her feet. She get talent, beauty, and still stayed with you for how long? You just am comot, omo." A third man added, shaking his head, "If my wife get half her grace and patience, I no go ever cheat again." But Oliver wasn't listening anymore. He was staring blankly at the screen, watching the woman he broke now stand before the world. Oh, radiant and unstoppable. Joyce was no longer his. She belonged to herself now, and the world was finally seeing the light he tried so hard to dim. She was fire again.